once again, we are after what's seemingly been what has it been? A couple months, maybe a month and a half, maybe a little bit more because everyone's been busy. But we are back here. Welcome to the Battle Frontier. This is the competitive VGC podcast where you can get all your answers. You will get better at this game if you listen to this podcast. Trust me, you will. Results are not guaranteed. We have to put that disclaimer out there. But anyway, my name is Tito. You are here live on twitch.tv/TitoKMF, so thank you very much. I am joined, as always, by this Lunatone, a.k.a. that Lunatone guy, a.k.a. Ian Lutz, Mr. I Got 60 Points, Mr. VGC Meta 2016. And we are also joined by our special guest this week, Gabby Snyder, commentator extraordinaire, whose person I'm incredibly jealous of, her and her job. She has like the coolest job ever. So how are both of you doing? Just in life, y'all good? Everything's good? We're chilling.
Yeah, I can't complain. Everything's going great right now.
That's what I'm saying. You have the best. You have one of the. I don't think you understand how jealous I am of you. Like I don't think you get it. Like I was talking to because I talked to Ian because him and I ride together a lot, and every time we talk, I'm like, man, you know how many crimes I may or may not commit to be a VGC commentator. Like, you know how long I've been trying to do that.
Can confirm these conversations have occurred.
These conversations have. I'm really
they
happy.
Are currently on record in case I ever get asked by police.
Ian, we all know you have a flip phone. Your flip phone's from 1999. You don't even have a place to record. Okay. But we're gonna cover a bunch of topics. There's been a bunch of news, not only concerning VDC, but concerning just Pokemon in general that we're going to go over. Maybe some stuff not VGC related we're gonna get into a little bit as well. But for the most part, it's gonna be really close to VGC because Internets is coming up, and for North America, and if that's coming up, that means that Worlds is like really close. So we're gonna talk about all of that. We got some players, an expert commentator, and then me, I guess, whatever. So, the first thing we're going to get into is a little bit of news. We're talking about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, right? So, the trailer came out last week. We got like about 6 seconds of gameplay and cutscenes, but it told us a lot of speculation is happening. So, Gabby, what are your initial thoughts about looking at the trailer? Kind of just what you saw, what your, just reactions just off the trailer. What you saw?
So, from a strictly VGC related standpoint, it looks like they're going to give us an opportunity to hopefully catch some of the older legendary Pokemon again, which means I really hope that sort of solidifies that we'll be going into Battle Spot doubles for next year's format. I just started paying attention to that format maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it's a lot better than I was expecting. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I mean, overall, the game looks beautiful. I'm excited to go back to Alola. I know that it was kind of a little bit controversial because they got rid of gyms and replaced it with the trials, and that was kind of a mixed reception, but I had a blast with it. I think Sun and Moon was the first time I wasn't playing through a Pokemon game just to be able to compete in a tournament the next day, and it was a lot of fun for that reason. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think the last time I had that feeling was when I played Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I think that was the last time. I was like, man, I just want to beat this game so I can start beating people, but. I took my time with the story mode actually for this one, so I can kind of really. I'm with you on that wavelength. Ian, what do you think? Please tell me.
Okay. Well, I mean, I liked the story of Alola. I remember when I played it. Of course, I did have to blaze through that game as fast as I possibly could, both for tournaments and because. Tito and I had to do some Pokemon events for MagFest, which required us to be, have beaten the game at that point. We only had, had maybe a month to do that.
Yeah, little
have and have a competitive team ready by then. So that was, time constraints. I am hoping that we do see either some more Pokemon like added to the decks that we haven't seen like in the Alola region, like that they just kind of sprinkle some in there. Cough, cough, Lunatone, cough, cough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not super excited to be playing through like another like main stories game just because depending on how many how differences there are in the story, it's kind of like I feel like I've done Alola's story again. Am I gonna get it? Yes, because you kind of have to for the tournament scene and all that stuff. And I am hoping that, like with Gabby said, that we do see more of a transition for a battle spot doubles / national decks format next year, because there's a lot of Pokemon I've realized by playing this current format that I realized I didn't think I would miss, and then I realized I would really miss them. And I'm not just talking about Lunatone. I'm mainly talking about Aegislash there. Like, I want to use that Pokemon so bad again. It was so fun. I'm also hoping we get move tutors. Just anything to give you more options, I think, helps the metagame overall. Like, some people say that will lead to more centralization, but I always feel like as long as you have all the options available to you, you can kind of think through problems that this game presents on a competitive level, and that's ultimately where I find the most fun. It's very frustrating to be dealing with something in a metagame where you're having trouble getting over it, and then you can see a way around it, and you just can't use it because it's not allowed in the format.
Right. I mean, I really hope that the and this is kind of the next topic of the general thing is what are we expecting from the game as far as maybe in-game content, but also what do you think it's going to imply the implications for VGC, because as you were saying, the format, there's a good chance the format's going to move into battle spot doubles format, and I haven't really I've only actually been maybe like the past 4 or 5 days been really looking at kind of what's on there, and I haven't formed an opinion quite yet, because I really like this format, just personally, and I really like.
And there's no reason to like stop thinking about it yet. We still have internets, and then there's worlds after that, and the post worlds metagame.
Yeah.
So I think it thinking about what like if you're trying to plan for battles, I know a lot of people that are trying to plan for battle spot doubles right now because they've kind of given up on this format and they're just trying to prepare for next year. But I think that it's still, I mean, we still got a good amount of this format left to play, so that in the forefront I think is very important.
Right.
Yeah, there's still a good amount of time, but I think one of the unfortunate things about this season is that we had very high-level CP events kind of across the globe, whereas for those players who are in the North America region, our high CP event is coming up in a couple weeks.
Right.
So I think there's just a lot of this mental feeling that I can't get the points I need, like I can't get day 2, like I can't get worlds or whatever. Which is unfortunate because it's not true. It's just we've kind of entered this new sort of global, a lot of people were traveling for CP this year, which is, I think it's great personally. But I would hope that, maybe people don't give up on the format quite yet, because I think there's still a lot of innovation that can come along from 17. It feels like every time I look at, I try to look at some Japanese player blogs, and I have a few from Latin America that I try and check up on when I remember, just to see like the metagame trends. And no one's agreed on a team yet. Like, this isn't like 2015 where chalk was basically like the thing. And I think that's good. Like, I want to see what people can come up with, but I also think that it's, if people want to take a break for a couple weeks and play around with battle spot doubles, I personally like it better than VGC 17, but I really liked 15 as a format, so I am incredibly biased.
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
I think the also thing to consider is that with battle spot doubles allowing megas, that like I did like when I started playing competitive Pokemon, it was mainly in Gen 6, where like, so this is the first year where I've had the team build without megas being there. And going into this format, I didn't think it was going to affect me, but having played this format up to this point, I realized that changes the dynamic a lot. You don't have one powerful Pokemon that you can just kind of rely on building your entire team's offense around. And so, I think that's where some of the appeal with battle spot doubles comes in, is that for players who enjoyed this style of team building you found in 2015 and 2016 to an extent, or 2014 as well. I think you gravitate more towards the battle spot doubles at this point, just because it's more of what you're used to. Of course, some people do like not having to have that one Pokemon that kind of your whole team is built around. So those players probably would still like the 2017 style. But I think it's just interesting.
Yeah, the whole team building aspect is going to be really interesting, because what I've found is like my favorite format. I've played in a few formats. I've played since 2013, but my 2014 is my favorite format. It's mostly because that was probably my most successful. But regardless of that, 2014 format was just really interesting for me because it gave me a lot of versatility in my team building. It was just a different way to team build. But we're coming into 2017, you can't just, like you were saying, you can't just rely on that one mega. Like you can't just throw out Mega Kang and then click Fake Out and then click Power Up Punch until you win. Like, or you can't click Xerneas, and with a white herb and just sweep. You can't. It causes 20.
Yeah, you just click Snorlax and then
Yeah, you just click Snorlax and then you click Belly Drum. But like, one of the things I really like about this format in particular is the fact that now we're seeing these three Pokemon, and although a lot of Pokemon are seeing a lot more prevalency, like Arcanine and Coco and Finny to a lesser extent a little bit, but you're seeing a lot of these three Pokemon cores that are taking the place of that one strong Pokemon, like the Mega, as far as how you build your team, which I think is a little bit more interesting. I think it's to be honest, like I think it's a little bit more. It causes a little bit more creativity, and you can tell when someone really thought about the way they build their team, or as opposed to someone who just kind of net decked it and just took it off. Like you can tell how someone has an understanding of the game based on how they built their team and how their core kind of works together, as opposed to I'm gonna just slap a Kangaskhan on this team. I don't know, it'll work because it's Mega Kang. Like I just like that.
It's a very mode heavy format. Yeah. I feel so. It's like teams typically have, I think, roughly like at the very least 2 modes, but sometimes like 3. It's I think hard to say we'd have 4 modes on a team, but definitely like 2 or 3 modes. And that's kind of how the teams are built around. So it's why you have like a lot of very very common lead ideas, like like Lele Drifloon or
like Coco Arcanine or
stuff like that. It's just you start with one mode and then you kind of create another mode around dealing with that, and then you throw on a really slow mon so that anybody that plays hard Trick Room just cries.
Right. That's true. You just throw Snorlax on that 6 and you're like, yeah.
I laddered with high Trick Room, or like with hard Trick Room, for a while, and that was always the bane of my existence. It's like that one slow mon. You're like, why?
Just throw it there. So, just thinking about VGC as a whole, as we, even though we got a lot of time left in this format, it's still like, we got to at the same time look towards the future, and just looking at the kind of format, the way the meta is right now. Gabby, you said you're not necessarily, you prefer Battle Spot to VGC 2017. How do you feel about VGC 2017, like as a format, as a whole, as far as the meta game? Let's talk about the meta first.
So I like VGC 17. I think my preference for Battle Spot doubles is just because I have a lot more knowledge about how the Pokemon work in Battle Spot doubles, because I spent a lot of time like studying and practicing for my Worlds run in 2015, and a lot of that knowledge has not left me. Mm-hmm. Whereas 17, I mean, you probably can notice when I commentate, like there'll be times where I'll be like surprised that something does so much damage. Like that's not acting. Like that's just me literally being surprised about, wow, someone was able to make, a Choice Specs Tapu Fini get a one-hit knockout on a Gigalith with a critical hit or something. Yeah. Like there's just a lot about it that I don't know, and I think that's a really good thing. Yeah. I think up until now, in terms of kind of where the format is now and where the format's going, I'm really glad you brought up the idea of net decking, because I think a lot of people have been doing that. I'm not saying everybody, obviously.
Right, Rajan.
Yeah, I didn't say any names.
Okay. He admitted that he net decked his team yesterday. He got it off. He got it off a showdown ladder.
But yeah, like I think a lot of people have been going online, using QR codes and trying out teams they like and then building it themselves and taking it to a tournament and, getting some championship points with it in a way that's very safe and kind of akin to what people are used to from like last year and the end of 2015. But now that we have internationals coming up and it's the last internationals, like it's not really a time to play it safe anymore. I think that in Madison, we saw the beginnings of people kind of playing around, seeing what would work, what wouldn't work. Trying out new things like Assault Fest Coco. I'm pretty sure that was popular before Madison, but like there were at least 10 Assault Fest Tapu Koko on stream that weekend. And it's exciting that people are, Tapu Koko before that was a very offensive, you'd run it with a Life Orb or Electrium Z and just, Thunderbolt something, and then it would just go away for the rest of the game. I think that creativity is going to snowball. I think for internationals, there's going to be a lot of very weird teams, and I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Same thing for Worlds. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the players who already have their invites locked up, especially those who are pretty much unthreatened for day 2 at this point, because I'm pretty sure the US has a couple. I know there's a couple in Europe who are probably planning on flying over. We'll probably see those trainers try something different just to see if it could be viable on the world stage.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick. I'm really excited, mainly for internets. Like the last huge event that I went to was Worlds 2014, which was a phenomenal event in DC where Sejun Park won with a Pachirisu, and that was insane because everyone was like, man, that Pokemon. And then my favorite thing about that was not the fact that he won, but the fact is whenever you went on Battle Spot for the next 4 weeks, it was a Pachirisu on every team and nobody won with it. That was the best part. And then those same people were like, man, Pachirisu's so good. 3 weeks later it'd be like, man, that Pokemon is trash. And it was like, it's like the Pokemon's fine, like, but thing is that guy's really, really good. Like, and he just understands. So like I'm really happy to see kind of where is it, because I think if you're going to be creative, I think there's two kind of ways of thought. There's either I already have my invite anyway, so I'm gonna be creative as I possibly can to see if it works, or unless I win this event, I'm not going to Worlds anyway, so I'm just gonna play what I want to play. So exactly. Those are two different. I mean, I know that's what me and Ian are doing. So those are the teams that Ian and I are making.
In all fairness, that's what I did last year, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. So
well, it's also a lot of pressure off you too. Like I remember, I mean, not that I've competed in like over a year at this point, but my last tournament I played in was Anaheim 2016. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this team. It's Xerneas Groudon, but it had like a Trick Room and a Tailwind mode on it. And I was like, I like this team. I'm just going to have fun with it. And I actually did pretty well. So like just not having that pressure on and running something that you find unique and fun, I think also just really helps performance in general. It's a lot less stress.
Yeah. But I'm excited. Since we're talking about internets anyway, we're just going to go straight over to the second topic with it, which is the event recap / news. There were been the last couple of months a bunch of events, from regional events to a bunch of MSSs. And Gabby, you were at a couple of these events. You were at Madison, I believe.
Yep.
And what was the other one?
I've done Madison, Anaheim, St. Louis.
St. Louis.
I think those are my last 3 that I did.
I'm thinking of St. Louis as well. So there have been a lot of events, and that's just in North America. There were a bunch of them. There was Manchester and just a bunch of other big VGC.
Don't forget like Virginia and Portland.
Virginia, Oregon, just a slew of events. Just overall reaching kind of looking at the top cuts from all these events and stuff like that, and what's won, what hasn't quite worked. What are you kind of seeing heading into internets? Kind of, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but using kind of the results that we have as kind of like a pool sample, we're expecting to see a lot of Arcanine has been an absolute terror. That Pokemon is way too good, but also a lot, and this is in the last, I would say, about 2 months, where Snorlax has gone from being on some teams to being on almost every team, and it's insane how that kind of Pokemon came, just out of the woodwork, in a format where people remember at the beginning of the format, there was a Marowak on every team. So there was Marowak, and there's just a bunch of stuff. So how about what we're looking at and kind of what we're expecting as far as Pokemon we're looking to see?
So one Pokemon that I saw kind of coming back at Madison, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Madison because honestly, like that's what I remember right now.
Right? No, yeah.
Was actually so there were two, Ninetales and Alolan Marowak.
Yeah.
I think it's because that Arcanine is a thing now, and Arcanine is even a bigger thing than it was probably 2 or 3 months ago. That Marowak has been able to kind of make a comeback, which I think is great. I think it's a really fun Pokemon. Bone Moring's awesome.
Yep.
It kind of has an awful speed tier, but it's not as big of a deal anymore now with people sort of entering the slow, bulky like portion, I guess, of team building. If that, I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but I usually believe that the metagame cycles, and we'll go from like really fast frail teams to super bulk, and then we'll go back the other way, and then we'll go back. So I think we're at the tail end of super bulk, and we're getting back to the offensive portion of the metagame. But yeah, so I think Alolan Marowak's going to keep getting bigger. Ninetales, I'm happy that it's making a comeback. Not that it was ever really gone, but I really like that Aurora Veil attack that it gets to basically give you double screens for 4 turns. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Halo's amazing because Focus Sash is still, I mean, it's not as often found on Kartana as it was, but it's still on a fair number of teams.
Yeah, it's on Pheromosas, Aerodactyls, just stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's speaking of Nihilego, Trick Room Nihilego is like my new favorite random tech, and I think that's like gonna become more popular. I was so happy when I saw that on stream in Madison. I was like, yes, let me talk about this.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Like, it's gonna be a lot more of these sort of like interesting, like I would have never thought about that kind of things. But in terms of like the actual Pokemon itself, like if you go to the Pokemon Global Link website, like the top 20 there, I highly doubt you'll see many Pokemon outside of that. Maybe getting down into the top 25 where like Alolan Persian lives, and there's one more that I'm trying to remember that's sitting on the bottom of that list. But it's just I think people have figured out which Pokemon are sort of above the bar, if you will, like for regionals level. So I think we're just going to see more permutations on that. I don't think there's going to be a Pokemon like Pachirisu that's going to come out of the woodwork and surprise us all, but please prove me wrong on that fact. I love to be wrong.
Ian?
Yeah, I mean, like, going on with the Nihilego, or Nihilego, whatever you pronounce it, that and Bulu, I've noticed that there was a couple teams, both from, one from Sydney, one from Madison, that was utilizing Bulu and Nihilego together. So that's kind of an interesting archetype that I don't think we've seen prior to a lot more of these recent events. So that's real interesting to see. Bulu is definitely kind of an interesting Tapu to use. I've used it occasionally, but mostly just because grassy terrain is slow and you can kind of guarantee it to use as a counter terrain. Trying to make Bulu work, and it's been kind of like an off and on mon, so we might see it do fairly well at Internats, but I think it's a real toss-up, and it'll be kind of an interesting to see how it fares, because it's always been kind of a Pokemon of question, I think, since at the beginning of this format up until now, as to how well it stacks up against most of the metagame.
I think the key difference between Tapu Bulu and the other Tapu Guardians is the fact that Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Fini, those can all fit on a team pretty easily. Like, you don't have to worry too much about, countering their weaknesses, because most teams will have a steel type to support, like, or not steel type, I can't talk. Like, most teams will have a way to stop things that don't like Tapu Lele. Tapu Fini is bulky enough that it doesn't really care, and Tapu Koko is fast enough that it doesn't care. But for Tapu Bulu, you really have to take a moment and think, okay, like I need something to stop Arcanine. I need something to stop. I don't know. I need something to help its speed. I need it to be able to use Hornleech and not, get knocked out immediately. I need to make sure Grassy Terrain stays up. Otherwise, like all my attacking power is gone. Like there's so much more like technicality to it in terms of the play style.
It's not a very splashable mon, basically.
It isn't.
Yeah. No, that yeah.
And being able to team build for a Pokemon like Tapu Bulu, I think, is something that only a few people can do. Myself is not one of those people.
Right. And plus, it's a very, I feel like it's a very specific Pokemon that you would that's more of a playstyle Pokemon. I think like it's not, because of the issue that it's not splashable. You need a little bit of finesse to not only create a team around it, but also to play it, because it does a decent amount of physical damage, but the fact is you're only really hitting for its type coverage isn't the best, especially against things that can really hit it hard. Like it has very little things it can do against Arcanine, and has very little things that it can do against stuff like Marowak or even Pheromosa maybe. It may be.
I'll have to run the calcs on it, but right. I'm pretty sure with Pheromosa being so frail and terrain boost and high enough base power,
right. I mean,
Pheromosa is probably not living. I mean, it's faster,
right? So that's another issue. The fact that it's
a majority.
Yeah, and
so I wouldn't say that like Bulu is your perfect Pheromosa check, but I don't know. I don't think it's I don't think Bulu
it's
has.
definitely
it's nowhere near it.
No, I was saying it doesn't have a lot to deal with Pokemon like that, and especially when Grassy Terrain is okay as a terrain. It's definitely in my opinion the most meh of the terrains. Like it's cool to have it. It's cool to have it, but like unless you're the good thing about electric terrain is that it boosts electric type moves, and the fact is a lot of Pokemon can learn Thunderbolt, so you could just you get the boost, via that. But besides, you get the boost and the heal. Grassy terrain is like okay. It's just with Tapu Bulu is just one of those. It's a very specific mon that I feel like takes a person to knows what they're doing with that Pokemon, because it dumpsters on Finny, and it dumpsters on a couple, like the Pokemon that it beats pretty handedly, and there's not much stuff that anybody can really do about it, and you can build it a couple different ways, but there's not a Bulu on my team, let's just say that. So speaking of events, going from regional, we're going a little bit smaller. Yesterday, in case you guys in the chat did not see, on this channel we streamed the first big event in the Virginia, Maryland area. We streamed the
DMV area.
The Gaithersburg Midseason Showdown. If the VOD is up, there was one whole VOD for Swiss. There's a whole VOD for Top Cut. I commentated 15 minutes of a Porygon 2 mirror. It was.
Oh, nice.
It was.
You're a real commentator now.
Let's put it this way. All right, because Gabby, I'm a Smash 4 commentator as well, and I've been that for about 2 years now. But I had more fun commentating that P2 mirror than like 80% of the matches I've called in Smash. Like, I am not kidding. I am not exaggerating. That is a fact. Okay, that is a fact that I had. But it was super fun. So the VOD is there. Rajan Ball yesterday won the event and got his invite for Worlds, which is awesome. So congrats to Rajan.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
He also.
Oh, I thought you were like.
No,
okay.
I was just referring back to that conversation we had earlier.
Oh, so. Yeah. But yeah, so it's really, I'm really excited. Internet. We talked a lot about Internets. That's the big event that's on everybody's mind right now. Indianapolis. It's gonna be on. It's gonna be on Pokemon. It's gonna be on one of the big streams.
There hasn't been a stream announced yet. I can't tell you that.
Okay. Okay. I'll ask DC. But anyway, but if there's a stream, make sure you guys catch it. We'll all be there. Gabby, you'll be there.
Hopefully. I'm still waiting to figure out a couple conflicts I have to sort out with work.
Okay. Right. Well, Ian and I will be there, so come through, and after we all go X4, we can go party. We can all party because that's my plan. I'm going the time that my Pokemon hit 0 HP. It's time. It's time. So it's gonna be really, really fun. But either way, I'm really excited. I have to build a team. That's probably something that I should do. Ian, you need to do that too. Aegis, let's stream tonight. Let's build a team. But we are going to make sure, guys, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and tweet at us using the hashtag Battle Frontier. We'll be answering the questions at the end of our discussion. It's going to be, and if you guys have any, like I said, if you have any questions, like, we'll answer anything. Oh, I'll answer anything. I'm not gonna speak for them, but I'll answer anything. I have no shame. But shouts to Danny in the chat, the person, one of the Porygon 2s. It was about 15 minutes, Gabby. Like, I'm not exaggerating.
I believe you. I mean, there have been times like where I look at team sheets and before a game starts, and I'm like, oh my god, we are so screwed if this like happens.
Aren't you so glad they made Celesteela this generation? The same generation they changed the timer rules to.
Yeah.
So I will admit, there were Seattle regionals a few weeks back, and I had to commentate 3 Celesteela Stall Wars back to back to back. Woo! And it was hard, but at the same time, the fact that people like the people playing the game could actually like basically juggle like 5 different win conditions at once while there was only one Pokemon on the field, and like hold their attention for the entirety of the 50-minute timer, like for me is just like, okay, like you get mad respect for that, because I would have just clicked in that forfeit button 3 turns in and just gone on with my life.
Right. But did you?
But like
was that during?
I am a very impatient player. I'm a patient commentator, but I'm a very impatient player.
That's where I made a conscious decision when I saw like Celestia this format. I was like, I'm never gonna run that just because I don't want to play the mirror. I think it's a good Pokemon. I understand how you can play it correctly and just win games off of it being unkillable, but like I can't risk running into that mirror because it's going to happen at some point.
It's going to happen. That's why you run fire. That's why you always run flamethrower on your Celesteela.
I was arguing with somebody like earlier on in the format.
I'm not wrong. Okay? I might not be right, but I'm not wrong. Always run flamethrower on your Celesteela.
Down to like how you EV trained yours compared to theirs.
Yeah, it's just
you just gotta have faith in your builds.
But it was so fun. Like I thought it was gonna be awful when I saw it happening because I was like, I'm solo commentating this. Oh no. But it was awesome. There were like people in the chat and we were all like Tommy was in the chat. It was just really funny. So go back and watch the VOD. You can see me flip out for 15 minutes about how much PP they have. Because the fact is Danny's Porygon 2 got frozen, but he couldn't kill her. He couldn't KO her Pokemon, her Porygon. So she went 4 turns without using any PP on any of her attack moves. And so she was like ahead by a lot when she recovered finally. It was awesome. It was sick. Like,
oh man.
It was sick. And then the other guy ran out of recovers. So she was like, "It's my turn."
I'll be honest. I finished my match and then I saw that like up being streamed and I was just like, I didn't think Danny was gonna make it out of that. So the fact that she did that, I was like, wow.
And she top cut the event, so good stuff, Danny. Woo! So
that sounds like fire.
It was.
Never give up.
It was
you can always win.
If you never give up, then you never give up. I had a thing, but I don't have it anymore. So any other? Oh, and the one last thing. It's kind of I didn't put it on the agenda, but Ian and I love Pokken. I love Pokken. The game is trash.
I also love Pokken.
Gabby also loves Pokken.
But okay. I love Pokken.
I'm very good at that game. But the thing is, the Wii U is not a great console. However, the Nintendo Switch is a phenomenal console that I should be sent. Because I can't find one. But Pokemon Tournament DX or Pokemon Tournament XD, depending on your meme, is a is coming out for the Nintendo Switch, and nothing else matters except the fact that Decidueye is in this game. Okay? That is the only thing that matters. I don't care about Darkrai or Scizor or anybody. Decidueye is in this game. How do you guys feel about Pokken on the Switch? It coming back? Are you going to play it? Stuff like that.
So,
you go first.
Gabby, go ahead.
you can go first. I don't mind.
All right, Ian, go ahead.
So, funny story about Nationals last year. Both Carl and I, both of us who, my friend Carl and I, we both made day 2, but we were basically seconds away from deciding to play Pokken that weekend instead of 2016 because neither of us really enjoyed that format.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing that we didn't play Pokken and we did go and we played in the actual VGC event. But part of the reason I am excited re-release is because I kind of got out of it. Because after Nationals, I was like, well, now I got to prepare for Worlds and all that stuff. So I took like kind of a hiatus from the game and I haven't caught up with it. Like it's been so long. Evo came and went. And so I'm really excited just to get the opportunity to get back into it again because when it did come out, I grinded the hell out of that game.
I have my pad right here, bro. If you guys can hear, this is me blowing off the dust off my Pokken pad.
God, I love that thing.
This is me blowing off the dust, wrapping it up, putting it in a bag. I am ready. My body is ready.
I was so concerned too that when I saw it coming out for the Switch, I'm like, oh, am I gonna have to use the Joy-Cons or am I gonna be able to use that pad? And then when they announced it, I was like, yes. Love that controller. Anything that makes playing a fighting game more like playing it like in the actual arcade setting, I enjoy that so much. I can't wait to play Machamp again too.
Yeah, I can't wait to.
Was Machamp your main?
Machamp was my main.
Nice.
I like being able to make 2 good decisions and win the game.
He likes never being able to get to anybody because they're too busy throwing projectiles. So Ian doesn't like to win.
Online, I'll admit.
It's true. Gabby, who do you play?
So when I was playing story mode with some friends in Seattle, we were all playing Suicune and we were just passing the controller around and having a blast with it.
Yeah.
And then I actually entered the Pokken LCQ last year because that was the only way to be guaranteed a spectator's badge.
Yeah.
And so I talked to Bad Intent a little bit, and he was like, "Oh, you got to play Blaziken. Like, it's really easy. You'll be fine. Like, just mash buttons." And I was like, "Okay, I can do this." I like got O2 knocked out, but it was so much fun. Like, I think the thing I love the most about Pokken is just there's so much detail, like in the backgrounds and in the character animations. Like, you can tell that there was a lot of just love and care about Pokemon put into that game. And it's just a blast to play. So I do not have a Switch yet. I will be getting a Switch. I will be getting Pokken DX. I don't know if I'll ever do anything competitive with it ever, but I will have a ton of fun just playing through the story on my own.
It's gonna be really, really fun. I'm really excited for it to come back. Plus the game looks gorgeous. I hope a lot of the stuff that was wrong with it gets fixed. And yeah. So, time for my favorite part of the night, okay? This is my absolute favorite part of the night, okay? This is is my favorite game. Hold on, where's my soundboard? I need my soundboard. Here it is. Okay? This is a game that we all call Is This Mon Bad? Okay? Where we, a panel of experts, okay, and me, all present a Pokemon, tell us why we think it's good, and then you guys in the chat and us here on the podcast decide whether or not that Pokemon is bad. Okay? That's basically how this is going to go. So, We have 3 Mons here. Who would like to go first? Ian will go first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull up. Is it the same Pokemon you were talking about earlier?
No, I mean, I can do that one, but there's one I think I might be able
All right,
to...
Ian. What Pokemon do you want us to discuss? Tell and you will use the sentence as always. This is why insert name of the Pokemon here is not bad. Ready? Go.
Gengar is not a bad Pokemon in this format, mainly because of its versatility with the Z move and the fact that Z Destiny Bond and being able to redirect stuff is actually surprisingly useful because most people do not prepare for it. They can't use Taunt to get around it. When I was testing a hard Trick Room team, one of the best breakthroughs I had, team building wise, was introducing Fast Gengar, mainly because it could keep my Trick Room setters safe with Shadow Ball since Kartana can't survive that. And just being able to redirect, they couldn't roar me out of it. They couldn't taunt my Trick Room setter most of the time because he's faster than a lot of the Pokemon that typically carry taunt. And he was still useful without that. You know, if you need the power for the Never-Ending Nightmare, you can pick up a lot of KOs that way. Sludge Bomb is a very useful move, and the fact that it's stab, you can deal a lot of damage to all of the Tapus. The main thing he struggles against is Tapu Koko, since it's a Pokemon that can outspeed it and typically one-shot it. But even then, you because of the Cursed Body ability, you can sometimes put yourself in some really interesting situations where you lose Gengar, but you disable a move that they were using. So now they can't go. They basically, you would think they would have initiative of your Pokemon, but because they lose that move, there's a good chance that they have to then play somewhat passively in order to regain the ability to bring their offense back up again. So that's why I think Gengar is not a bad Pokemon.
Gabby, is Gengar a bad Pokemon?
So, as soon as you said Gengar, my gut reaction was, yes, it's bad because everything in their mom in this format has access to, like, Tectonic Rage. But I like having 2 Z moves from 1 Z Crystal. I think that's really great versatility.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Z Destiny Bond, though I'm not sure if Mimikyu is the better user for that or not, given the fact that I think it can stick around a little bit longer and sort of provide your team a little bit more longevity thanks to like getting a Trick Room or something first. But I would not say that Gengar is a bad Pokemon after hearing your argument. Might not be a good Pokemon, but I don't think it's a bad Pokemon.
I think it's partial, like, yeah, it definitely, you can't, it's not splashable, like, yeah, it's not like, it's like Tapu Bulu where it's not splashable, but if you have a team that goes well with it, it can really put in a lot of work.
Yeah, I can see it. I don't know what kind of team that would be, but I can see it.
Gengar's a bad Pokemon, let me tell you why, okay?
Oh, wow.
Let me tell you why, Ian. Okay, the number one reason is because you think it's a good Pokemon, that's how I know it's bad. Okay, Ian? I've seen all your teams, Ian. You tried to run Choice Band Tapu Koko yesterday, Ian. Okay? Pokemon is trash, man. Alright. First of all, everything in their mothers, like she said, has Tectonic Rage. That's the first thing. Second thing, by the fact that Gengar does not have Levitate, makes it not as great. Even though it is pretty fast-ish, right? You usually run a Z Crystal on it. More than likely, if you're going to use it for Trick Room. However, you know, that means you're not wasting a Z move, but the thing is you lose the priority on another Z move that you would normally have that hits more stuff, especially for super effective. Even if I'm using Z, like, if I'm using Psychic, like if I'm using Trick Room for Ghostly Z or for Trick Room, or if I'm using Destiny Bond, I meant to say Destiny Bond. Destiny Bond, right, so I get Never-Ending Nightmare, is that what that's called? That Z move is also that Z move is also bad. Okay, no, only like 2 Pokemon could use it. But like, it doesn't. Let's look at the meta. Never-Ending Nightmare is never ever gonna hit a Gengar, or excuse me, gonna hit a Snorlax. So that's a problem right there.
Yeah.
It's not gonna hit Porygon. That's a problem right there. It's more than likely. I would say it's not more than likely not gonna OHKO Arcanine, not gonna OHKO a Finny, not gonna OHKO a Celesteela. So now you have a Z move that doesn't do what most Z moves are supposed to do, which is to trade your item for a Pokemon. That's what most Z items are designed to do. And now, at the same time, you have...
But to be fair, if you Z Destiny Bond, you can get that trade. Although you're trading an item and
you're trading an item and a Mon, man. like you're trading an item and your own Gengar.
But the thing is, in the context of the team I used it in, you did that for a purpose. Like it was to get you somewhere further in the game. So the idea is that either the Z move gets you mileage, or the other thing you do with the partner during that opportunity gets you mileage. So it's putting your opponent between a rock and a hard place, and Gengar has the ability to do that. To amend something I said earlier, yes, Tapu Koko can knock out Gengar, but that requires the terrain to be up. And run Tapu Koko the last MSS, like there are ways to make it to where Tapu Koko doesn't have its terrain up fairly easily. So, you know, it's I don't see Tapu Koko isn't a perfect check.
I don't see it, man. I don't see it. It's just
decided it's going to be on my internet's team. Prepare.
I think you got to give Gengar a little more credit. I mean, yes, it's not great, and yes, like there is the whole tectonic rage thing, but that's the kind of, I think, versatility that you need on a Pokemon at this point in the metagame to keep your opponent guessing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's always just been like a playstyle thing for me too. I love having the ability to use both a Z status move and a...
Yeah, that's why you want me using the Slowbro, man. That's why you want me using the Slowbro. But I know if Gengar had Levitate, this would be a completely different conversation. Because if it had Levitate, it'd be pretty good, in my opinion. But it doesn't have Levitate. So that's where I'm stuck. Where if Gengar had Levitate, it would juke so much. If it had Levitate, you could build Assault Vest Gengar, okay? And you would just build it super specially defensive, and it would like not die to most things in the current meta. Like I don't want maybe a Psyshock from a Lele.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like you can play around that as well. But like,
oh no, even with Assault Vest, you're not surviving anything.
Yeah. So it's like
Lele. I did toy around with bulky Gengar for a bit, and that was getting me nowhere. The other problem too is that running anything even more so than just being able to survive something, that's a problem. The issue is that Gengar's speed is like very strategic, being like 1 point faster than Kartana and like Ninetales as well, which we said where it was coming up. So like you want that speed maxed out as high as you can, and if you run even like if you do something like run Modest 252, you're risking speed. Like I think you're maybe like a point faster, but like you're risking like base 95's kind of speed creeping you there, which 95 is like Arcanine speed, and there's still a lot of fast. I mean, I think more people are going for more bulky Arcanines right now, but you can never tell because you can still run into it's like Jolly Band or like Jolly Life Orb or like any kind of like max speed offensive Arcanine is still perfectly viable in this format right now. I will say, eventually move on from talking about Gengar because it's clear I'm winning some people but losing others. But the one thing that I found, the other thing that struggles with is Drifloon mainly because Shadow Ball, like, you know, it's that fast Shadow Ball is kind of obnoxious to deal with. And Scarf Lele is also kind of a pain. That was always fun on the ladder, losing turn 1 to that. But like I said, it's why you can't that not many mons can. And when it comes to finding a mon for a team, it's like you need to justify it with not with what the mon can't do, but with what it can. And to do, and my personal like ability when it comes to like playing this game and like team building and all that stuff, it's like I like those qualities. I understand there's going to be a lot of people that don't like those qualities, but I do find a lot of them very appealing, and there's not many mons that you can say really does the exact same thing that Gengar does.
Okay. Well, time will tell, as with all things. Gabby, what Mon are you talking about?
So I think Metagross is a good Pokemon, or a not bad Pokemon, because I really like its typing. It does suffer from the problem that Gengar has, which is tectonic rages everywhere, but I think you can build around that in this format at this point in time. It gets access to Zen Headbutt, which allows you to punish opposing Tapu Lele and basic who may try to take the terrain away from your Tapu Koko, for example. Um, it has a lot of interesting type coverage moves that you can use for like weird Z move techs, like Colin Harrier and Conan basically had this team around Dallas. So I guess December, January timeline, where it had Fightium Z with, I think it was Hammer Arm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a guaranteed knockout on Snorlax, which I thought was amazing.
Right.
Um, it has priority moves so that if there isn't a Tapu Lele on the opposing side of the field and you need to do a little bit of damage to get rid of a focus sash or otherwise, secure a knockout, you can do that. And it just looks awesome. So I haven't done any damage calcs for Metagross in recent times because I haven't really been team building in recent times, but I think it's a Pokemon with a lot of potential, and provided you can counter like Arcanine and Garchomp with the rest of your team, I think it can really serve an interesting niche when it comes to bringing offensive potential for your team.
Ian, is Metagross a bad Pokemon?
No, I think Metagross is a very, very solid, sturdy Pokemon. I think just going back to reference the MSS we had yesterday, Rajan was also running a Metagross on his team with a weakness policy, and the really interesting thing about weakness policy and how it works in conjunction with the Z move mechanics is that if you protect against a tectonic rage, not only are you taking a fourth of what is essentially their main way of getting rid of your Metagross, but it still activates your weakness policy. So you get turned from you take one of the biggest things that threaten Metagross, which is that tectonic rage, and you turn it into an asset that helps you positioning wise and offensively. With there not being a whole lot of speed control, and like basically with Icy Wind being near non-existent without move tutors, the distribution of Icy Wind is just awful right now. Your only form of speed control, like the other that can kind of like it's similar to, I mean, you have, what's the electric move called?
Gigavolt Havoc?
No, not Gigavolt Havoc. I'm thinking of the one that slows it down.
Electro Web.
Yeah.
Electroweb. There's Electroweb, and then there's Bulldoze. And so, like, Metagross with the Clear Body ability is able to take advantage of that, whereas most mons in this format really, I mean, you could Bulldoze, but then your partners drop to speed. At least with Metagross, you can stay at your same neutral speed while dropping theirs. So, I mean, it has that advantage going for it as well. The other thing that I believe Jan mentioned as he was commentating the grand finals of that is Metagross is one of the few Pokemon that can securely and safely switch in against a Continental Crush from a Gigalith, and that's a very scary Z move to be facing like at any point, just because of all the weird, crazy KOs it can pick up on. So with all that, like just knowing that all that's there, I there's no way in good faith I could ever say that Metagross was a bad Pokemon. Plus, it like Lele can't touch it at all, and Lele is one of like the hardest hitting Tapus. And not only that, but you want your opponent to bring Lele if you're playing Metagross, because now you have their psychic terrain to take advantage of, and they can't intimidate you, which is fantastic.
Yep.
For a physical type attacker, because Arcanine is everywhere, and thankfully Arcanine can't do anything to you, because usually you have an Arcanine of your own that intimidates as well. So I mean, I was looking at, I was really impressed with Rajan's yesterday, and I had to actually look at the EV spread he was using, because it was taking very little damage from a -1 Flare Blitz, and that's a high base power move. You would expect a lot more than, like, I think it was doing %. So I mean, that's, for one Intimidate, I'll take that any day.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know that Metagross has the potential to be bulky. I think outside of Colin and Conan's set, like most people have been running it like banded and just all attack, all HP, and that's it. but the fact that it can actually live a -1 Flare Blitz from an Arcanine is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I just love Metagross. I think it's great. I think everybody should use it.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, I think people should still use it after everybody else is using it.
Right.
That's just how much I like it.
As someone who played VGC 2013 and had to hear people talk about everything before that, Metagross historically has been one of the most successful Pokemon in VGC. That Pokemon is good. It's good in doubles. It's good in singles because it gets its mega. Like, that is a good Pokemon. And the thing is, I really was looking for a way for a very long time to find a way how it fit into this meta specifically, because I was so afraid of, like, look at all the Garchomp, look at all the Arcanine, like, just look at it. It's just staring at me and it makes me sad, and I want to use this Pokemon that I'm so familiar with. But after seeing what Rajan did with it yesterday, and, you know, kind of how he's been messing with it, it's going on my team. Let's just say that. Like, let's just, like, you know, like, I kind of made that decision when I was watching him play the first time when I watched him play Alvin. I was like, look, you can play this Pokemon, especially since it does a couple of things. Unless you're, like, it does pretty good against Bulu. Tapu Koko does, it's pretty okay, right? A Meteor Mash to a Koko is going to do at least a chunk.
And if you have Bullet Punch to finish it off,
I mean, then you have Bullet Punch to finish it off. Lele can't really touch it. Or, excuse me, not Lele. Finny can't really touch it.
No, Finny can't.
So, but thing is, I'm out here throwing Meteor Punches and getting these boosts like it's nothing. And I'm out here doing big boy damage. Getting, like it's and it works well it works well into Gigalith because it's a steel type, obviously, so it's not going to get hit by Sandstorm damage. It's going to...
It beats Ninetales.
It beats Ninetales, too. It's just really... that's a good Pokemon. That's a good Pokemon that I'm really happy to mess with. You know, I'm looking forward to messing with.
I didn't realize that Rajan was running one yesterday. I'll admit I spent most of yesterday on a plane, so I was not watching Pokemon. Thank you, no streaming videos, but I'm gonna go back and watch those VODs now. I'm really excited.
They are on my stream, so the VOD is there. I'm gonna upload them to YouTube before I leave for
We're just gonna ignore it. Game 1 didn't happen. Okay?
Yeah. Game 1
didn't happen. Yeah. Game 1 and that didn't happen. Like, as far as Metagross is concerned, that didn't happen. That was
But that and in you know, in top 8 he played it really, really well. So Tito.
Just
what is the bad Pokemon you look to talk about? Well, Tito, I'm glad you asked. Because I'm going to tell you, Tito, and Gabby, and Ian, and the chat, what I've known for a very long time. Serena is not a bad Pokemon. Okay? We're going to talk about this right here, right now. Is it good as Kartana? Absolutely not. Kartana is a really good Pokemon. But Serena is not a bad Pokemon for a few reasons. A, its ability is really good, okay? Queenly Majesty is very, very good for a couple reasons. A, nobody knows what it does, which automatically gives me an advantage, because the amount of times I go to an event, throw out the Serena in the face of a fake out user, and they try to fake out the other Pokemon that's not Serena, and they just look at me like I'm cheating. It's the best feeling ever, because I'm like, ha ha, ha ha ha, and then I get to walk. Second, its move pool is not amazing, but it's exactly what it needs. I'm running on mine Trop Kick, which is a very, very good stab move, even though it doesn't get access to Leaf Blade, but you lose the damage, but you get a single target Intimidate, which is very, very good. High Jump Kick, which is pretty good. It gets Play Rough as an egg move, which allows it to hit Garchomps, and Garchomp, unless it's running Fire Fang, cannot hit a Serena, really. And it also gets U-Turn as a way to switch out. It has a really good attack stat. I believe it's 105, if I'm thinking off the top of my head. It is... I'm tripping, it's 120. It has a 120 attack stat, which is huge. So you can run a Life Orb on it if you want to be a big physical attacker. I run mine with a Assault Vest, because it can with the way it's built, I have it to live most Flare Blitz from Arcanines. If completely dumpsters on Finny, it does well against Coco. It can't really do much against Bulu, but it does okay against Lele because it has access to U-turn as well. It's a really good switch into Snorlax. Like, it's really good against, has a really good Snorlax matchups because it has Trop Kick. So if you pair that with an Intimidate, when he belly drums, you switch in Intimidate, you Trop Kick it. It's not perfect, but you do reduce the damage by a lot. And it also gets High Jump Kick as a way to, do big damage. And then my favorite reason is that Serena is really good in speed control. You don't have to worry about Serena you don't have to, the problem with Kartana is that it's so fast, so when it gets Trick Roomed, you're kind of sad. But Serena is a really good speed for being able to work well in Tailwind, as well as good in Trick Room, especially based on how you train it as well. It has a base 72, one of those low mid but still mid-level speed tiers, so it allows it to outspeed a bunch of Pokemon in Tailwind, but also in Trick Room not suffer as much, to still be able to go before a lot of its threats. Pheromosa is a big threat for it, just because Pheromosa will probably it's not very physically bulky as Serena. But besides that, there has a bunch of good matchups, like a lot of stuff in the meta, including Gigalith. It's a good Pokemon. It's not splashable, and I think Kartana is the only grass type that is splashable, and even then it's kind of iffy. But it's monotyping. It gets stabbed from only one move that's not Leaf Blade, so there are drawbacks. But I think Serena is a good Pokemon. This Pokemon's not bad. It's not great. In most scenarios, you would run one Kartana just for damage. But if you're looking for a bulky Pokemon that also does damage, that can go in speed control as well, Serena might be the move. I put it on every team. This Pokemon's good.
So I pulled up Serena on Global Link, 'cause that's usually the first thing I do when I hear of a Pokemon I didn't really consider anymore. And I found it interesting that you didn't mention that it gets faint. Because, like, when looking at the top 10 moves, I mean, Drop Kick looks pretty cool. I thought you said Drop Kick at first, and I was really confused.
That's what I call it. I call it that. Drop Kick you!
No, it's a good pun. Like, the translators are working on a few levels to get that one.
Right, that one, it took a minute for most people.
But, like, it gets faint, which I think is something that's very underutilized in VGC right now. I mean, being able to break protects with a priority before going into something like a Z move seems like something that should be done more often, yet I don't think I've ever seen it happen. So I think that alone makes Serena a decent Pokemon. Because I agree with what you said. Kartana is probably the most splashable grass type out there in the metagame right now. But I think that, again, as we get into this like pre-internationals, pre-worlds metagame, I think Feint is one of those moves that tends to do really well at that point in time. And being able to use Feint on a Pokemon that can also help with your, deal some nice grass damage, drop attack, and not have to worry as much about, musical Pokemon in terms of switching out to get rid of stat drops or having to switch back in to get more stat drops. Like, there's potential here. I don't know how you'd support it well. It seems like
I have plenty of teams. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Like, I can't picture any personally right now, and Global Link is giving me some interesting options. Pinsir is number 9 out of 10 in terms of the list of Pokemon that this Serena is paired with, just in general. So I don't really get that one, but
get that at all.
There's potential.
Right.
I think there's potential.
Ian, you've heard me talk about Serena for the past 4 months and how good this Pokemon is, I think. Also because I love grass-type Pokemon. So, Ian, I'm giving you one opportunity right here, right now, to tell me how you really feel. Is Serena, Ian, after everything we've talked about, right now and personally, is Serena a bad Pokemon, Ian?
It's potentially a really good Pokemon that nobody has used effectively. And I don't, you know, and I say that because like looking at its move pool, it has a lot of really interesting support options. I think in a different metagame, Serena could be a really good Pokemon to have to worry about. Just like something that would allow Serena, something where there's not Arcanine on every team. Serena
Yeah.
could be a good Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's like that, like because I was with you for a bit in playtesting Serena, and it definitely has its strong points. Trop Kick is an effective is a really good effective way of dropping attack in a lot of situations. It's also very conveniently a stab move. Chunks a lot of things really well. Wins the 1v1 against Coco, just because it's also pretty specially defensive. Like you can build it fairly specially defensive. And it's not like, you know, oh, you have electric terrain. Well, I'm grass, I resist it anyways, so it's not a big deal. I ran mine differently with, than yours because I ran the Fairy MZ with both Play Rough and Aromatic Mist, and I believe I built it to where with the Twinkle Tackle. I mean, it wasn't great. Twinkle Tackle did a lot of really depressing damage, but it did pick up those on all the dragons in the format. So Garchomp. Actually, also Gudra. I did run the calcs against Gudra, and I did pick up the KO there. So I was a little. I give myself a little pat on the back there. But more often than not, I did the Aromatic Mist, which I wish worked a lot better. The interesting thing with Aromatic Mist, and the thing I liked about it, was that you could boost a partner's special defense through Protect. So there was a few end games, and this wasn't often, but like when the team was at its high point and it was doing the best it was on the ladder, there were a lot of times where I set myself up in a situation where give myself like a little bit more special defense, I could just wall out my opponent's last Pokemon, and that won me a few games. And then I also lost a few games because of crits, but you know, whatever. Like you mentioned, Feint I think is a really solid option on it. There's not a whole lot of Pokemon right now that get that, like, and are like super viable. The only other Pokemon I can think off the top of my head is Hariyama, but you know, Hariyama's suffering hard from like kind of like 4-move syndrome there, because you kind of want to run Poison Jab. You also kind of like Heavy Slam. Knockoff is always useful. Close Combat is necessary, and Fake Out is also fairly necessary. So really, you know, it's finding those other 2 moves to kind of fill it out. But Serena, yeah, I think Serena is more oriented towards that also goes into its ability as well. You mentioned that it got you were talking about Queen Lee's Majesty, right? When you were going over Serena before. Yeah. There was a lot of times on ladder that it shocked me of just how often it worked, where it's like, you know, you have a fast Pokemon and they lead their Fake Out user to kind of try to get a turn on you, and you switch in Serena the turn they go for Fake Out, and you get your damage off anyways. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think
and not a lot of people are aware of that. It's like if somebody sees a Tapu Lele on their team, and then like, well, they could switch in the Lele here.
Right.
But if you have Serena out, you know, Serena always blocks it, you know, so that works.
Yeah.
The other thing too is there's a lot of times where I've noticed this with Tapu Lele players, where they see their terrains up and they know you have a Tapu in the back, but it just never occurs to them that you could switch in the Tapu and still get your Fake Out off.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times like I've won games because of that, where it's just like they just completely, that's an oversight that just doesn't happen when you have Serena, because like you know, you always protect against priority. The only time that can backfire is when you're like, well, I have Serena out, there's no way they're going to go for Fake Out this turn. You switch Serena out and they don't think and they go for it anyways, which I've seen that happen too. So I guess what I'm gonna to get more on topic and to whether I think Serena is a good Pokemon in 2017, no. But I do think that somewhere out there, Serena can be a good Pokemon. I think it has the makings of. It just needs a format where it doesn't have to worry about going up against Arcanine every single match. Right. And that's actually why I don't like Kartana for the same reason. I know Kartana.
You hate Kartana.
With a passion. Because I tried using it and I just never got it into a situation where I was like, you know what? I'm glad Kartana's on my team. I was like, no, this is a good Pokemon that I just don't know how to play. um big play style clash, but that was the main issue I had with it. Is just like every team has Arcanine, so every time you go into a match, they're gonna have something that dunks your Kartana, and not that they need it, because as long as they have a special attacker, there's always a way to KO your Kartana.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I never found that reliable. But we're not talking about Kartana, we're talking about Serena. So because you said Gengar's bad, I'm also gonna say Serena's
Yeah, he's learning
in this format.
He's learning. He's learning. Yes, I'm rubbing off on him. Yeah. So either way, guys, if you were in the chat and you're like, man, I don't know what to do about my VGC team, we just listed off 3 reasons why you could be using Serena, you could be using Gengar, you could be using Metagross. Those are 3 suggestions for you guys, which is another reason why I like to do it. I like to get people's perspective onto other teams and kind of see what they think about Pokemon that maybe not everyone is using and that are still incredibly viable. Pokemon is a game about 2 things. It's about information and it's about options. And you have more options than you think you do.
And positioning.
And positioning. But more than anything else, my opinion, Pokemon more than anything else is a game of information. So
Oh, definitely.
So the more information that you have, the more Pokemon you are aware of, right? Maybe you won't get your fake out bodied by a Serena now that you know what it does. So, no, just kidding. I'm still gonna body you with it. So this would be a great opportunity as we're kind of wrapping up here. If anybody wants to kind of, plug all their stuff, kind of what they're doing as far as social media, or if they stream or not, or whatever. Gabby, where can people find more about commentator extraordinaire for VGC, Gabby Snyder?
So Twitter's the best place to find me right now. It's at Bidoof, lowercase I, Bidoof spelled just like Pokemon. May or may not be a covert Apple reference right there. Mm-hmm. I tweet about everything. Like right now I'm on vacation, so most of my tweets are going to not be about Pokemon, but as my vacation ends in about a week and I go back to the real world, I'm going to start
the real world of Pokemon.
The real world of Pokemon. I might try and get a couple streams in before nationals, and just to familiarize myself with what's out there. And yeah, so just hit me up on there. I'm always happy to talk to people if anybody wants to talk teams or commentary or anything like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Ian, where can we find more about the Lunatone guy besides Googling the word Lunatone?
Well, I'm also primarily on Twitter right now, though I'm constantly being nagged at by my friends to start streaming again. And also if I do start streaming again, the Lunatone guy is also conveniently my Twitch account.
Yeah,
so
branding.
It's my one thing I have going for me. Let me have this.
No, that was not a sarcastic clap. That was a good clap. I'm very proud of you. Trust me, Ian. I don't need to be subtle with you.
Okay. Just making sure.
Okay.
So you could either find me either at the Lunatone guy on Twitter or on Twitch, or also I have Trainer Tower and Nugget Bridge account. All of those use the same username. So if you just search the Lunatone guy, good chances are, unless there's an imposter somewhere that I don't know about.
It's my alt. What's up? And guys, you are watching this podcast. This is the Battle Frontier podcast. It used to happen every 2 weeks. Now it kind of happens basically once a month, where we kind of wrap up all the events and stuff like that. There will definitely be... we are going to live record an episode of the Battle Frontier at Internets. And I don't know who's going to be on the show. It's basically whoever wants to get in a hotel room and talk about anything for an hour. So I will... And I also will not guarantee that I will be sober. Okay? I cannot make that guarantee. It all depends on how I'm doing in the tournament. It solely depends. But it's gonna be really, really fun, and that's not gonna go up on the stream. Obviously, that's gonna go straight onto YouTube / SoundCloud when I get that all straight away. But it's definitely gonna go up on YouTube. But you can find me on Twitter at TitoKMF, here on Twitch.tv says TitoKMF. I'm trying to maybe one day, Gabby and I will commentate a VGC match together. That is the goal. One day. I will one day she will show me how much better she is than me. So, but thank you guys, thank you both for joining us.